see me live at light speed. With your mind's eye, flow through time and unseen. As we're called up in the fall of Pisces. And the stars alight, lights in the sky bleed. And we fall to earth unclean, just like me. Where the hearts of men beat on for their queen. But the sweeter things in life are not free. So we teeter between good and easy. Because
Joe Rogan cancels the cancelers. Alright, let's do it. Gutfeld, I should have known. I should have known. What's the rhyme gonna be?
Took a POOPTA on GUPTA.
Alright. Okay, you know what? I can admit when I'm wrong. That was a banger. He took a POOPTA on GUPTA. That was his best rhyme he's ever done on his millions of rhymes that he does every week. That was top tier.
He took a
Well done,
POOPTA
Gutfeld.
on GUPTA. Thank you. That was mine. Add CNN
bro.
to the list of things Joe Rogan now owns.
Gutfeld won.
Speak of CNN's chief medical
The
correspondent,
world
Dr.
3,006,734.
Joe Rogan that it was wrong for the network, including Don Lemon and Jim Acosta, to claim Rogan took horse dewormer as a COVID treatment. Last month, Rogan announced he tests positive for the virus and had been prescribed several drugs to fight it, including ivermectin. Now that drug is FDA approved for use in humans for certain infectious diseases, and the formula for
Actually, no, not for infectious diseases, only for parasitic infections. Weird that you would kind of mince words there a little, but
for animal use is much more concentrated. But that's not what Rogan was taking. But CNN didn't care and lied about it and said Rogan was taking horse pills. On Wednesday, he called them out.
They're lying at your network about people taking human drugs versus drugs for veterinary.
Dude, he's acting like such a little. God.
Calling it a horse dewormer is not
It's
a
a
flattering
little
thing, I get
crybaby.
It's
that.
a lie.
It's a lie. I just want to have one conversation with Joe Rogan. I just want to ask him, bro, is ivermectin used to deworm horses? Well, yeah, but no. Is it? Well, yeah. And Joe, did you take ivermectin? Well, yeah, but hold on. So, Joe, did you take horse dewormer? Like, it's very simple logical flow there. And this fucking spineless sack of a man, Sanjay Gupta, just cowered away from this.
Lie on a news network. You're talking about a drug that's been given out to billions and billions of people, a drug that was responsible for one of the inventors of it making the
Nobel Prize.
winning the Nobel Prize in 2015.
Yeah.
Why would they lie and say that's horse dewormer? I can afford people medicine, mother. This is ridiculous. It's just a lie.
I don't think anyone is thick.
But don't you think that a lie like that is dangerous on a news network when you know that they know they're lying? You know that they know that I took medicine. Like, here it is. This is ivermectin.
You got
This
it
is
with
right
you.
here. Somebody gave it to me.
All right, hang on. The thing is, we're like going so fast.
Yes, we are going so fast. But Rogan didn't let up.
Do you think that's a problem, that your news network lies?
Well, I don't.
Dude.
What did they say?
They lied
What did
and
they
said
say?
I was taking horse dewormer. First of all,
Dude, and here's the other funny thing. Like, I would love for him to try and sue CNN for this, because I watched the clip where they talk about Joe Rogan, and they do mention, well, of course he took the human version, but this is mostly a horse dewormer, and it's not been used to fight COVID ever. So it's funny to say that, speaking of, like, you know, ruining comedy, like, come on, dude, it's funny. Yeah, you took horse dewormer, you fucking jamoke. Like, own up to it.
it was prescribed to me.
But they literally, like, in the segment, yeah, it was towards the end of it. I'll say that. It was towards the end. They said, like, obviously Joe did not, like many others, go to a veterinary store and buy ivermectin for deworming horses. He got it from a medical source, not a prescription. Important distinction. A doctor could lose their license for prescribing that, but I think it's like over the counter, so you can get your hands on it through a doctor.
Me by a doctor.
Yeah.
Along
They
with
shouldn't have said
a
it was horse.
bunch of other
If it was-
medications.
if you got a human pill, because there were people that were taking it, the veterinary medication, and you're not, obviously. You got it from a doctor, so that it shouldn't be called that. Ivermectin can be a very...
But, okay. Sanjay, buddy, guy, friend, pal. You just said it. people are taking the veterinary one. Why are they doing that? Is it not maybe in part because of the fucking, speaking of lying on your broadcast, the fucking lies that Joe Rogan has platformed, that this shit is at all effective and that it's some kind of conspiracy to hide the silver bullet against COVID from you so they can make you take the vaccine that's going to turn you into a gay communist. Like, challenge this fucking guy. Grow a backbone. You're a fucking medical doctor. You know about this shit more than this Neanderthal. Like, God, it makes me mad.
Very effective medication. They shouldn't have said that.
Why did they do that?
Why? Yes, they should
You
have.
didn't ask? You didn't think that was You're the medical guy over there.
Yeah,
I didn't ask.
they said it
should've
because
asked
you're a
before they did
fucking
it with such
brickhead, you
belief.
dumb
No,
ape.
Yes, you did. I watched.
He's so
haven't seen
nervous,
a
dude.
doctor
He's
get that-
quivering, dude. He's like this. This is why liberals will always lose. Liberals are fucking cowards, dude. And it irks me to no fucking end how cowardly they are and that they can still be called on the same side of the political spectrum as me. I disavow liberals. I disavow all liberals. They're all fucking cowards. God.
That traumatized.
I was sitting at my buddy's house watching this the day it came out, this whole podcast. I didn't get through the entire thing, but I got through most of it, and I was screaming at the TV like the whole time
Since my last prostate exam.
because I knew this motherfucker would. It's just a fucking home run for these dweebs. And that's what I was yelling that at the TV at Sanjay too. I'm like, bro, you are doing damage right now. You are damaging not only like your network and your own reputation and everything that you should probably personally care about protecting, but also literally the fabric of our fucking country. Too many eyes on there. At the end of the day, like, millions of people are gonna see at least a clip from this. In terms of how many views it actually got between Spotify and YouTube and all that, I don't know, but I can say, I mean, just for the fact of it being on Gutfeld, millions of people are seeing it. You know, he has millions of viewers. So I don't think it's hyperbole to say that this interview has done serious damage to the discourse and the fabric of the social fabric of this country. Because the thing I said is, like, I came away from watching this podcast, I want to take ivermectin now. I'm convinced, dude. Because Sanjay, if this is what the medical field and this is what science and the liberals and the Democrats have to offer, then yeah, I don't want to be a fucking part of it. Yeah, they probably are trying to turn me into a gay communist, and I better take some fucking horse paste quick. Like, that's how I felt coming out of it, and I'm a fucking radical lefty.
Butt jokes work. What do you know? Now the takeaway
Yo,
here
can you
is
hear
that
me?
it's not about the
Yeah, what's up, bro? You hear me malding?
Yeah, so I was muted. I was doing some stuff, but I was listening the whole time. I heard the Batman skit, and now we're on the Joe Rogan GUPTA.
Yeah, here, sorry.
Yeah.
Let me throw it in the Discord so you can listen in.
I was actually watching. I watched like a good amount of the interview with my cousin on. It was one night this weekend. I watched like a good amount of it. I
It
don't watch
came
the
out
entire.
on
I think
like
it's
Thursday
3
or
hours.
Friday,
but
I think.
I watched. Yeah. I watched it either Friday night or Saturday night.
It made me furious, bro. I went into it kind of hyped. I was like, finally, Joe has like someone on who's not just gonna spew nonsense. And then this dude just absolutely fell apart, literally quivering. Like, you can see him shaking back and forth because he just cannot like say anything with any amount of confidence. Tragic. What were your thoughts on it?
I mean, I don't know. You're asking me, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was someone on the Twitch. I don't know enough about what it is, but I mean, that guy, he's like a CNN doctor or something, right?
He
GUPTA?
started his career before CNN. You know, he was pretty established and known before having like a routine spot on CNN. But yeah, that's where he is now. I'd always kind of respected the guy. He was one of the first mainstream kind of medical voices in media that was kind of lightening up on marijuana in like the early 2000s or mid 2000s, I guess. So I always thought he seemed like a pretty reasonable guy, and he's also somebody who generally has pretty good debates. Like he's had like anti-vaxxers on his show before and stuff like that, and you know he's always kind of, they're more conversations than like contentious debates. But I thought he would do well here, and he did not in my eyes. Like,
So, all right. So from the standpoint of not knowing the guy very well, or what his usual debate is like, the doctor, he definitely seemed, just from like their body language, both like he definitely seemed timid in that conversation or whatever, especially when Joe Rogan was like, CNN lied. Like, that's a national news network. They lied, and like he just kept going in on that, and he was like, and you were a part of that, so like you lied. Like that whole section, it just seemed like the doctor was like really, he was timid and he was like hesitant. He didn't really want to like clash on that, or like clash on with like Joe Rogan's beliefs about like what he took.
yeah, he was uncomfortable.
He seemed very, he seemed, he was just like playing it safe, with everything he was saying. He was kind of agreeable, he seemed agreeable, and he just wanted to like maintain like a friendly, he wanted to maintain like a good like, good energy at that time. Like he seemed like he wanted to he was agreeable. He just wanted to not, he was kind of tiptoeing, the line. He didn't really want to, he seemed like maybe he wanted to say something and disagree.
Oh, he kept saying the passive aggressive thing. He kept going like, oh, that really bothers you, huh? It's like, dude, come on. Like, it's such bitch shit, dude. Like, just
he definitely, it's usually a lot more outspoken with his, like, a stance on something. It's usually much more vocal, like if he disagrees with something or like what he believes.
GUPTA?
Yeah.
I guess not, but I think that's the thing, is I think the problem again with liberals is that they exist in such a safe space that they never really face much actual challenges to their established beliefs. So then when someone does, and Joe did, and he had some, I think they were wrong points, but like well articulate, solidly grounded points that he truly believes in and feels strongly about. And again, they're dangerous because they're wrong, but GUPTA it just had no ability to push back on it. And that's just, don't go on the show if you're not able, especially with Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is the most agreeable guy. He agrees with almost everybody who comes into his show and says something with like their chest puffed out, So that's another thing. Whenever Joe does have like somebody I like on, like a lefty or something, or Kyle, he's always agreeing and saying like, yeah, and he's always agreeing with stuff that I think is right. And that's what I thought was going to happen here, but GUPTA just couldn't even muster the bare minimum amount of confidence in his beliefs to sway Joe. And Joe comes out the dude who was pushing GUPTA around for once, which you almost never see, like very rarely. He'll do that sometimes, like when a guest like is anti-marijuana, Joe will, even if they're saying something really strongly, he'll go all alpha chimp mode and beat his chest and defend it. But a lot of the time Joe is the agreeable guy. So that's what just really bothers me the most, is that I think we're seeing a trend in Joe Rogan not having enough strong, good voices in his studio. So he just kind of has been in this perpetual agreement with a lot of the worst actors that he has in. And this just furthered that trend. And when's the next time he's going to have somebody on like Sanjay, who does have, I think, the more correct positions overall, but has a better ability to voice them? Probably never.
So you think overall he didn't represent
No, I think I
He
think
didn't
he did
represent
straight up
liberals
damage.
well.
Well, I mean, I don't think you can represent liberals well. I think they're inherently just embarrassing and terrible. But, I don't think he represented the truth well, and I think that's because he's a liberal.
And it seemed to me like my understanding, which from what you said, it seems like maybe I misunderstood or I was just lied to. I thought that Joe Rogan was saying that he took like a different variation of the same medication, and that like it sounded like he was saying ivermectin is known as a horse dewormer, but I took like a different one. That's what it sounded like he was saying. Did he say that and he lied, or did I just misunderstand what he said?
Well, so there's a few layers to this. All right. So first of all, it's ivermectin is the same across there's no different versions of ivermectin. There's different dosages. An animal is going to get a much higher dose than a human. A 2-ton horse is going to get much higher dose. And that's why all these idiots who went to a veterinary store and chugged horse paste, even if they didn't chug it, even if they only took like a finger amount, like on their pinky finger, that was too high of a dose and they end up shitting their intestinal tract out. So the way I think the best comparison is ketamine, which is a horse tranquilizer. When you take ketamine, you are taking horse tranquilizer. You're just taking it. You're not going to take the dose they would use to tranquilize a horse. You're going to take the human dose that gets you fucked up, And of course, you're not going to take ketamine unless you're doing drugs like illegally, But so that is a little bit different. But again, the simplest way I can say it is like it's literally the Patrick wallet meme. You ever seen that? Like trying to show him his wallet, like, is this you in the picture?
Yeah.
It's like, is this ivermectin? Yeah. Is it used to deworm horses? Yeah. And you took it? Yeah. So you took horse dewormer? No, I didn't take it.
So you think he was saying, all right, so I don't know what happened. I misunderstood, and he described it in a weird way. But you said there's only one type of that. It just depends on how much you take for a dosage.
Yes, and there is a human dosage and human application of ivermectin for sure. It's used for parasites, not for COVID or any other infectious. He took a human dose. They offer human dosages. He showed the packet in this clip. I don't think you were watching at that point. He had it on his desk, the little tablets. So I get, so that's only the first layer. I almost, if it was only that first layer, I almost am sympathetic to him, because it's not wrong, but it is like kind of dunking on him a little bit. Like you could say like CNN could have just said he took ivermectin and ivermectin's ineffective. But they called it horse tranquilizer because they probably were kind of trying to, or not horse tranquilizer, horse dewormer, because they were trying to dunk on him a little. So I get that. But that's, again, only the first layer. The second layer is I watched the clip that got him all fucking bent out of shape. And they say, granted, a little late in the clip, but they say, like, they clarify, like, obviously Joe is not going to the veterinary store to buy horse paste dewormer that you can buy there. They admit, yeah, he got it from a doctor. He's taking the human dosage of it, but they still just called it horse dewormer because it's funny to call it that, I guess, So that's where on the second level, he has no argument. Like, they did clarify, they just didn't do it up front, and he's pissed about that because it makes him look like an idiot. So he's getting all defensive about it. But I would love, he kept floating like, oh, do I have to sue CNN for slander? It's like, fucking try it, dude. Like, you will get laughed out of that courtroom because they do clarify it.
I mean, even if, because he kind of smiled when he said that. I'm like, even if he's saying that, like, and he doesn't really like have any intent behind it, that is like, you sound like a lawsuit is like lingering in your mind somewhere. I don't know if that, maybe I'm reaching, but
no, I mean, I think 100%. I think he never had any intention to sue, but I do think he genuinely feels that he could, and that just shows that he did not actually watch any more than the things the little clips he saw on Twitter retweeted at him, where they say horse dewormer with no context. But I watched at least one, the main clip, the one that came out when he first announced that he was taking it, with Anderson Cooper and some doctor lady. And it, again, I was watching it with Toby because he was like, I really think that he has a case here. And, we were getting most of the way through the clip. I was like, all right, they didn't explicitly clarify that he took the human. That is, I guess, a little dishonest. But then they do at the end, before the end of the clip, they clarify. So, you can not like that. You can think it's like bullying or something. I don't know. but in any kind of lawsuit, that would just not fucking hold up whatsoever.
So he really doesn't. So you feel like he doesn't really have a case there at all.
No, and that's why it pissed me off that Sanjay was like, "Oh, they shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry, Joe." And then passive aggressively, "Oh, that really made you upset, huh?" Like,
yeah, he seemed like, I don't know what he seemed like he was kind of backing down. I mean, I don't know, maybe he had some kind of reason to not say what he wanted to say, but he definitely seemed like there was things on his mind, but he held back.
I don't even know if it was holding back. I don't know if he even had the ability. I don't know if there was ability that he was restraining for some reason of decorum or something. I really think he just like has never faced an actual, like, Joe is a good representation of like your average American dude, dude bro. And I don't know if Sanjay's like had to deal with people like that outside of maybe his practice early in his career, the limited interaction he'd have with normal everyday people. And I think once he faced someone like Joe, who's gonna say what he believes strongly and kind of, look you in the eye and test you, see if you're gonna push back. And I think he crumbled. Like, I think he fucking crumbled.
Yeah, because at that moment it was kind of like Joe Rogan was kind of putting the bait out there for him to come back with something. Like he was definitely
so cocky
ready for. Yeah, he was definitely ready for an argument. He felt he wanted to put something out there and see how he would react. And I think he was probably a little bit surprised when the doctor didn't really come back with anything except kind of like being nice to him. Like, yeah, I feel you. Like that's understandable. I'd be the same way. Like it was. He was probably a little bit surprised. Like, wow, I didn't expect this guy to just like agree with my frustration. I didn't think that would go that way. I thought we were about to just have an all-out. I thought we were about to just make a highlight reel, like.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought we were about to have a great back and forth for the fans, and it just didn't happen.
No, but then it also after that bolstered his confidence through the rest of the whole thing, knowing that he could just kind of push those buttons and get away with it. Because that brings me to the next thing that I thought was the most damaging was him talking about that one study that found that like young males who take the vaccine are like 7 times as likely to have like a cardiac failure or something like what do they call it? Myocardosis or something like that. Irregular heart rhythms and pumping.
Yeah, I remember that. They had that article pulled up on the screen. My only thing about that is it's just like, where is that even from? Like, I just feel like there's so many studies out there and there's like so many like bullshit sources. Like, where were they even reading that from?
That's what was really bothering me. But it was, even if it was a great study, even if it was a perfect study, it is still just one study. And like, I think Joe should probably know that, especially as someone who's very, pro marijuana, that relying on one study out of an abundance of studies is probably not the best thing to do. Because I was watching it with Josh, and he actually even pointed out that we had just read a study earlier that said like, oh, marijuana users are 7 times as likely to have hospitalization if they get COVID or something. It's like, or 7 times as likely to get COVID, I think, to catch COVID. And it's like, I mean, maybe, or maybe that's just one study, or maybe it's some other factor. The fact that like, stoners are always passing joints, maybe that makes them more. Maybe it's not the marijuana. It's like a single study is never enough. It's just, and you'd think. No, you go.
Yeah, because you can't just say like, oh, the data data says a lot of different things. Like, and you can skew the data to just like fit your narrative, it's not that difficult to do. You know, you can do a study and like take 20 people and be like, oh, this is what these 20 people said. But it's like, oh, well, guess what? The next, 200,000 don't relate to that, and they're in the same category. Like the next 200,000 people who smoke marijuana on a daily basis actually disagree with that, like the findings of that study. You just found, 200 people or 20 people that were able to fit your narrative. And it's like, yeah, there's just so much data out there. It's easy to just like you find your narrative in like a group of people and then put it out there and be like, oh, like COVID, marijuana smokers are more susceptible to COVID. And then it's like, on the flip side, I'm looking at it like, yeah, well, at the same time, literally nobody I know that smokes weed has gotten COVID. So, and I could just come out and say that. I could be like, oh, well, nobody I know that smokes weed has gotten COVID. So maybe that's not the truth, but I'm not really going to say that either, because I'm not, one thing doesn't always mean the other. I don't just make an assumption about something like that.
Well, right. And that's why when it comes to these kind of wars of studies, I would think the easy answer, if you're a man of science, is that's very interesting, Joe. That's an interesting study. I hope they're looking into that. But here's the thing you have to understand. One study is not enough. We have people looking at this. We have the CDC, which are some of the smartest top people in their field, all combining their knowledge, going through all of the studies in a way that your dumbass can't, like even if you tried. And so it becomes a thing of, are you saying that you don't trust the CDC to see this study? And you're saying if they did see it, they would lie about it to cover it up. Like, that's the point you have to get to, is like, what are you're saying you don't trust our institutions to protect us. You think that you reading one article is more important or more closer to the truth than the entire resources of the United States combined. Like, so what are you trying to, if you believe that, if you really just don't trust the CDC to protect us, and you think this one study is like being covered up by them or something, like, what do we do, bro? Like, that's a big deal. Like, where do we go from there? But they don't actually think that, because they don't ever think that far. Like, he just has a narrative in his head, and this article fits that narrative, so he jumps on it, and it sounds like a good dunk. And then the thing that really pissed me off is that Sanjay engaged with it. He was still playing along, and like he kept referring back to like weighing the risk. He's like, well, even if they are 7 times more likely to have a heart attack, well, is that actually even safe? Is that more dangerous than risking COVID? It's like, that is not the level you want to engage in. If this study is true, then do not get the fucking vaccine. Like, I would say that. I don't think that study's true, or if it is, I think that I would trust our institutions to look at that and see that it's legitimate and put a halt to it, because they already have in some case, like with the Johnson & Johnson, that was basically a statistical anomaly that some people were dying from. It was like 0.05% above the statistical average of someone to experience those symptoms. And they stopped the vaccine because they saw that it was that 0.05% above, and they're being fucking careful. Like, they don't want a whole generation of kids to die because they prematurely got this vaccine and there were problems with it. And if you believe that they do want that, then holy shit, bro, we're in a heap of trouble. Like, I would be storming the Capitol too if I believed it had gotten that bad.
Yeah, I mean, that, for me, it just kind of comes, yeah, it's like you said, like, if you don't believe that, like, all of these, like, sources combined, like, pretty much the best scientists, you didn't really exactly say that, but, I mean, the entire United States combined, like, coming together, and, like, you think, in the CDC, you think that's not, like, their studies aren't credible, and you're gonna like read one article from source unknown and believe that, then that's probably that might even be a bigger problem than if the article that debatably might even be that might be the actual problem rather than what the article you're reading is saying is the problem.
Right. I don't think these people who who play this narrative are actually willing to take it to its final course. Oh, some are. I think there are some who know what they're doing and know what they're pushing towards, but I think a lot of people don't fully take it to that next step of like, oh shit, like, so you're saying our government is trying to murder children, like, and cover it up. Okay. I mean,
Yeah. A lot of people
I've
believe
thought
that.
that. Yeah, I've thought that for a long time, and I've known that for a long time. We do that in other countries, but find it a little harder to believe here. And it's also always harder when it's science too, because science is not monopolized by government. I mean, there's good scientists out there who would raise red flags if they were seeing bad data, you know, and the only ones who are doing it are not generally very good scientists. Like, they're not well respected in their community. They're not published. They're always selling some kind of weird like snake oil on the side too. Like, they have their own agenda and financial incentives.
That's hilarious. This man said snake oil.
It's, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I'm sorry if you're out there saying that our entire government is corrupt to the core and all of the scientific institutions in this country too are run by some kind of like cabal looking to do population control, but then on the side you're also selling like essential oils, I'm like, all right, bro, I mean, don't you have bigger things to worry? Like, if that's the case, why are you like selling bullshit? Like, let's go to war. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it almost seems like you're just. It was like when I was watching that documentary, the pandemic documentary.
Right, exactly.
And there was that one lady. I wouldn't remember her name, but you might remember her name. You said like you recognized her
from. She's been around.
From somewhere else, and you were saying like she's got like plenty of books out there, like that just like all these like the documentaries and like all these like theories that she like comes out with is she's a millionaire, off of like, she has a there's other things going on that she's trying to attract attention to. It's not she makes a lot of money kind of selling the conspiracy narratives that she pushes.
Right.
So it's like when someone has like, and I think that way about in other categories too. When someone like generally isn't like when someone generally genuinely has nothing to lose, like by saying something, like they don't have a business or
the fate of the world hangs in the balance.
Yeah, exactly. Like when someone like is making a claim and they're not like, you don't see, their channel's not monetized and like they're not like making all this ad money and like doing all these like side things that are like generating revenue and like trying to drive you into like other shit, like a lot of those figures do, or like buy this product or like buy this like ebook, and like they're not like, there's nothing like that, and they're just like this like random person. Like I mean it could go either way, but it definitely is less, for me it's a bit less suspecting than somebody who does have a lot of other shit that they're trying to push besides like that crazy narrative.
Well, not to mention the other counter incentive structure to that is that any journalist worth their weight would kill to have like some anonymous informant from within the CDC come out with documents that show like, yeah, they are covering shit up. Like, that would make you the biggest fucking journalist. Like, every Pulitzer Prize, you fucking win a Nobel Prize in journalism, like there is such an incentive to have legitimate leaks come forward. And it would be almost impossible with the amount of people involved in all of this science going on, all these different researchers to people who review the research to people who review the review of the research. Like, someone would come out and say, hey, like, there's this pattern, even if they wanted to come out anonymously because it was some huge conspiracy. Like, it's just almost impossible for me to imagine that a con of that level could not, and again, in the way that we have set up our society, could not come forward, because someone would benefit greatly from that coming forward. and not in the way of like selling their shit on the side, but in the way of like exposing a great fraud. Like that would be amazing.
That'd be probably be way bigger. There'd be way more success in actually being right than just trying to like lie to make less benefit from your like side ventures. If you were actually right and that was legit, then you would actually be excited to bring that forward, because that would be massive. Like if you would have really come out with something legitimate that was like, all right, this is credible, and then there is actually a good percentage of truth to this, or it's the whole truth, then yeah, that would be massive. So there would be more incentive to do that and be right.
Perfect example, like Project Veritas. You think they're not fucking nipping at the bit to find any kind of even trace of some kind of cover up or conspiracy, and the best they had was they were able to get some like low level like accounting assistant at the CDC to say like, yeah, we're gonna put vaccinations in salad dressing, or he was saying some weird shit or something like that. It's like, and that's the best you can do with like, I know how hungry you are and how many secret cameras you've probably set up and meetings that you've falsified to try and get people to spill information, and the best you could do is like some guy who's not even a scientist but just kind of works at the CDC saying some like weirdo shit about making everyone get vaccinations. It's not even like, oh, the vaccine is fake or something like that, or any smoking gun like that. Just some weirdo shit. So
weirdo shit. Yup. Miss us with the weirdo shit. 2022.
I'm saying, bro.
2030.
And it makes me sad, bro. Like I really was a huge fan of Joe Rogan. He has just gone so off the fucking rails with the weirdo shit in this past year and a half, 2 years almost.
You think it's like a lot of, you've heard like a lot of his like weak claims, like just coming out with like an opinion on something that's just like based off of like little to no evidence? Like is it like weak claims that is like kind of drawing you away from him?
It's more just like this conservative speed run. It's like this is not the same guy that I used to watch in like 2015. Like he was a much more like populist kind of guy who was talking about like, yeah, I want to pay more taxes if it means that I get to see a better country, and talking about, yeah, people should have health care, and like talking to a diverse range of voices. And when he does have some of the more crazy people on, he would push back pretty well against them. And then it's just been this almost complete 180 in the past 2 years where it's like I haven't heard him say anything that I agree with in literally 2 years. Like he's had every opposite take from me, and it's like I don't need him to believe everything I believe, but at a certain point it's like, well, who is this guy? It's not the guy that I had any agreement with anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't really seem like the person that I was like interested in listening to.
Yeah, he's just another conservatoid now.
You think he sold out in some way?
I don't know. I really, he's got fuck you money, he doesn't need to sell out. And like, it's not like Spotify is this big conservative network. Like they're almost kind of they're very liberal in that kind of safe spacey kind of way. So it's weird to me that he would go to Spotify and then get more right winger. I get maybe that's it. Maybe he feels like, oh, I signed this deal with Spotify and they're gonna think that they can pressure me into being a liberal, but think again, I'm gonna go the other way. Like maybe that's on some level some kind of rebel spirit thing going on where he wants to push it as far as he can to the right, just to kind of middle finger to Spotify, I guess. I don't know. I have a lot of theories on what has caused this, and I'm not confident in any of them to commit to one. It could be a lot of different things.
Maybe he's been having more conversations with Tom McDonald.
I want to see Tom McDonald on the Joe. He hasn't gone on, right? I think I would have known.
That'd be epic. Yeah,
I would totally watch the fuck out.
I would have known that too. I definitely would have seen
that. He should go
reached
on
my radar.
I don't know how that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, I think that'd be relevant.
I mean, it seems like at this point, right up his alley. He basically is Tom
Yeah.
McDonald at this point. There's like, I think they are politically aligned at this point, which to me is kind of crazy.
Maybe they're like sharing talking points back and forth at DM, and like, oh, Joe Rogan's like, maybe you could say this in the song. He's like, yeah, bring him on and say that.
Dude, I just
get more viewers.
I don't get it.
Well, like you said, it doesn't really seem like he would have much reason to sell out when he was already. Like you said, he has fuck you money. Like he can kind of just.
He does
he's
what
like,
he
nah,
wants.
I'm gonna go fishing today. You know, it's like,
yeah, 100%.
I don't want to go do that, but he does. So that's why it's weird, because it's like you don't really need to please anybody. Like you have a pretty loyal fan base. You know, I don't. Do you think his fan base is like really tied to like certain things he says? Like you think it would, like his viewership could drop if he were to like say something that they didn't like, or you think it's just they're so loyal that, like, which that includes you and me to a degree too, because I do watch him pretty
I
often
still
as well.
watch
But
him even though I get so pissed off. But his numbers dropped off significantly when he moved to Spotify, and he's actually not even the number one on Spotify anymore. He just got replaced by some gamer, some live streamer. But so it's hard to say. I mean, people are probably still. Hey, what up, Toby? Toby's in the chat.
Yo.
Damn it, I don't have my soundbar up. I gotta play it.
How about that, Toby?
Where is Toby? Raise your hand, Toby.
There he is.
Where's Toby?
Oh, you can't hear my
Thank you,
soundbites,
Toby. I hear so many good things about you, Toby. That's good news.
No, I was asking you if you thought his fan base could dip, like if they really like if they were really like on everything he said, and you felt. I was asking if you felt like he could say the wrong thing and they could just like be like, you know what, screw this guy, and like he could just lose like, you know, an eighth of his fan base in a day if he were to say the wrong thing, and you would kind of going from there.
Yeah. What I was getting at there is that there has been a pretty significant drop in his viewership since he moved to Spotify, so it's hard to say if that's because of the move. And you know, I hate Spotify. That's part of the reason I don't watch it as much, or I'll just watch clips now on YouTube. I don't have the Spotify app on my phone. I used to listen to him like on the train and shit, but I'm not doing that anymore. So it could just be, you know, he could have stayed as where he was and maybe the viewership would have still dropped off anyways, or maybe it is because he's had some fucking ass takes recently. I think he did have a lot of fans kind of like me, who we're getting something. Yeah, I was gonna get to this next. Actually, the Reddit has been a good metric for what you're talking about. His Reddit page.
Can you kind of see the reflection over there?
There's been contention. Yeah, the fandom is divided, because I think he did have a lot of fans kind of like me, a little more left-leaning progressive, and respected the fact that he wasn't like the most left guy ever a lot of the times, but he was good at bringing some leftist ideas to his more kind of apolitical sporty audience, you know, like his meathead audience. But yeah, so I guess the other side to that though is I feel like if he started going hard against the right, I think he would lose a lot of his audience. I think a majority of his audience are fairly right-leaning people. Sometimes people who kind of think of themselves as centrists, but usually if you kind of push them, end up being pretty right-wing.
It was like that
yeah, Scooby-Doo.
That meme.
Yeah.
You know the one?
I think I posted on Twitter,
right? Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Scooby-Doo
I'm
one,
a centrist, and he takes off the mask.
Yeah, it's like he pulls off the mask, and he's actually right.
Yeah, exactly. That's generally how it happens. Not always. There are people who are kind of centrist, but then you push them and they actually end up being a little more left-leaning. But I feel like those are few and far between, and I don't think those are the types who go out there making entire podcasts about how they're centrists and how the right's gone crazy and needs to come back to the center. It's like always the other way around. It's like, oh, the left's gone crazy and needs to come back to the center, even though their idea of the center is like just to the left of Nazis. So the thing Toby sent me is a post that says Joe is concerned about creeping authoritarianism from the left, but not by the right. Oh, okay, here's the whole post. Anybody else confused on this? I'm listening to the Michael Sullenberg episode, and Joe's going on and on about we're on the road to dictatorship, the left wants censorship, blah, blah, blah. Well, I agree with him. I agree with him that the radical left is crazy and should be feared. They are the far left. Often they drown out reasonable conversation, but they are the fringe. However, one of the two parties in the United States has basically given themselves over to one man, has captured the Supreme Court, and has gerrymandered tons of elections to be basically useless. The Republican Party has stood by Trump after he tried to call the Georgia Attorney General to overturn the Georgia election. They stood by him after January 6th insurrection. I just can't understand why Joe can laugh off, ignore the threat of authoritarian from one of the two main parties in the U.S., but he's shaking in his boots over a bunch of pink-haired lesbians who scream at politicians over wokeness. Facts, dude. January 6th, that wasn't an insurrection. That was fucking nuts, dude. The media's driving people crazy. Trump says the election wasn't legitimate and he won. LOL. Dude is such a savage, bro. He's just an animal. He's super funny. I mean, that is, yeah. I mean, I see them on Twitter. Like, there is a faction of the far left that is extremely cringe, but they're all like autistic and like introverts and they don't go outside, so I'm not really too worried about them. But yeah, the radical right has literally had a president in office who did in fact call a leader of a state, a governor of a state, and say, hey, why don't you find those votes for me? Or might have to take you out to the lake, get you on a date with the fishes. Yeah, I don't get it. I really don't. What are the comments here? Oh. Politics has destroyed America. I mean, bro. I think the thing people really need to understand is that literally every human interaction is politics. Like, it's just, politics is what we do in the same way anteaters eat ants. Like, politics is to be human.
We talked about this a while back. When you're saying that, you're referring to like the social structures that make up our society, right? Like even your friend groups are like, if you look at your friend groups, like they're often, not always, but they are often based on like the working class, or what, like you're usually friends with people of certain classes, and those people usually tend to make friends that are in the same class as them. Are you referring to that?
I just mean that I think a good example is like money. Like when you buy stuff, people always say you vote with your money. Like that is true. Like we all kind of do that to an extent. Like everything we do has some kind of like broader implication, and is some kind of exercising of power in a risk reward scenario that has not only impacts on our lives and how we live, but can affect people around us. Like everything we do can affect people around us. So everything we do is in a sense political, not in the two-party or political spectrum sense, but in a sense of like everything is an exchange of kind of complex, not necessarily material things, like whether they're ideas or feelings or how we make each other feel, how we contribute to our community, how we make a living, what we buy, what we eat. Everything is just like, it's political, and you can try and ignore that. You can try and pretend it's not, and like you're just being apolitical, but it's like that's kind of a delusion, bro. Like you are making choices that affect other people, that affect you, that affect the bigger societal structures that we exist in, like you were talking about, affect your friend group, affect your family, like, and that's politics. To me, it's just, I guess it depends on what your definition of it is. You could keep it to the strict, if you just mean like politicians are ruining society, that's a statement I can understand a little more because that's a specific thing. But because those are people who dedicate themselves to the political interactions that affect their lives and everyone else's lives. And those people do tend to suck. So saying, politicians are ruining America, I get a little more. But politics, I think people need to swallow the pill of just like, yeah, we exist and we are political eaters. In the same way, an anteater eats ants. Like, it's just who we are. It's our identity. Toby says propaganda is ruining America. In a sense, almost everything's propaganda, though, too, when it comes to it's like, right, everything's trying to I guess the difference is it intentional or not? Do you know that you're misleading for a purpose? I guess that's what kind of defines propaganda. And I could agree with that. Ignore the noise. Culture wars are a trap. Tax the rich. Amen, brother.
Yeah, it's like, and I can't hear Toby, but I know you said he mentioned the propaganda. I think that ties into the propaganda, because it's like, I think people vote based on the most that they've seen, meaning the political signs. I think people, that's my theory. I think people vote with whose signs they've seen the most, and that kind of sucks, because that's just there's almost no
intentionally or like subconsciously.
I think it's subconsciously. Like I don't think they.
I could agree with that.
I don't think they're thinking like, oh, I think he's probably the best candidate. I don't think they're consciously like, oh, we should vote for him because we saw his signs and they looked really cool. Like, I don't think people are thinking that. I think it's subconsciously. They don't realize that they're doing it. Like, they just see the name on the ballot and they're like, oh, that's relative. Like, I know who that is, and they'll vote for them. I think it's more like that. But they're not constantly like, oh yeah, his signs are really cool. I don't think it's that. But the propaganda, like Toby was saying, ties into the lack of information, because it's like when you have those ads, nobody will take the nobody will go the extra mile to like legitimize that and like find out like what actually happened. But they'll see the propaganda and they'll develop an idea. They're like, wow, that person was so demonized in all those ads. And it's like, then at that point, it's like whoever's running the most ads might gain a lot of voters, because they're not gonna, the lack of information, they don't have anything else to put against that to say that, oh, actually that's not at all what happened, and they just wanted to make that person look like, they just wanted to make that guy look like shit, and actually this is what happened.
Yeah, I think it has to do a lot with like straight up consciousness too. I think the less conscious of a person you are, the more your subconscious controls you, and the more like you see an ad that uses like little subconscious tactics like scary music and like flashing images and horror movies signals, your subconscious mind, because you're just such a drone in your life and you just don't even really ever think about anything, you're just going through the motions, your subconscious is much more receptive to that kind of programming, because it's really part of your consciousness retreating into the subconscious, because it's not getting use in the day-to-day. Which is why I think like things like art is really important. I think that's like an exercise of your consciousness, any kind of creative activity, and I think a lot of people are really lacking that in their life, and that makes them susceptible to propaganda. That makes them, when I see a stupid attack ad that's trying to use those horror movie tactics and stuff, like I recognize it as that. But if I was just kind of in the matrix almost, just in that programming, like that would probably I'd be in the voter booth, and like on some level the part of my brain that I never use remembers like, oh, scary with this name, so don't put the X there. Like I'm not trying to like, I don't like to dehumanize people, but I just do think it's like a muscle thing. It's like some people can't lift heavy weights because they don't work out their muscles, and some people can't lift heavy ideas because they don't work out their consciousness. It's not even an intelligence thing, or education or anything like that. It's just literal, like, how often do you use those like more abstract thought processes in your head, or do you just kind of let them go on auto drive and then they respond to things like scary music?
Wow, what a statement. What you just said before that was like really well worded statement.
The heavy ideas.
Yeah, I can't recite to exactly what you said, but it's just, that was really well worded. It was like probably 2-3 sentences ago. You said like, it's not a da-da-da, but it's a lack of
Yeah, I
It's a
don't, well,
something like a lack of consciousness, or a reflection of a lack of consciousness. It was a really good statement.
yeah,
Wow.
I sometimes catch myself falling into that trap of being like, oh, these stupid apes don't know how to think, and it's like that's not a good way to think, dude. It's really not, and that's me, my consciousness thinking about that on another. My subconscious wants to just hate those kind of people who don't think, and that's not fair. The truth is, we're all caught in this system that kind of encourages us to not think on a daily basis, in the same way that a system could encourage you to not work out on a daily basis, which ours also kind of does on some level. But yeah, it's not a dehumanizing thing. These people are just as valid as anyone else, and it's nothing to do with like if you've gone to college or not or any of that nonsense. Like, you can be extremely conscious not having a day of education above, like, basic childhood education, like reading and writing and stuff like that. I mean, not having that would definitely be a detriment, but yeah, it's not about these people are subhuman. It's about they're just not working out. And they're not encouraged to work out because the people who have the power to encourage that kind of society have an incentive to discourage it, because it's yeah, it keeps them in power. They all they have to do is put out these dumb ads, and nothing ever changes. The status quo. Conservatives don't end up getting what they want. Liberals don't end up getting what they want. Lefties never get what they want. And we're all just kind of caught in this place because there's such a huge voting base of people who are so ensconced in that system that these politicians have enough of those kind of drone voters secured. And again, that changes on the local level. I think it's a little more understandable on the local level, and it's not as much propaganda. It is like, oh, I know this guy and I think he's a good guy, and I don't even necessarily disagree that should be how local politics run. To some extent, you don't want just complete like nepotism, but I don't know. It's all very troubling. Doesn't bode well for the political future of this country, but that original post that Toby sent through, though, really does hold a lot of weight. I don't, even if you are somewhat concerned about like quote unquote authoritarianism from the left, like, come on, dude. It's like the left has never stormed the Capitol and flown an enemy flag within its borders. Like, I guess unless you think the LGBT flag is an enemy flag, which some people definitely do. So Joe thinks smoking weed makes him left wing. LMFAO. True, dude. Oh no, that's like his last position left. Yeah, dude, it seems like this subreddit is pretty posed against him. I'm not seeing much Joe defense. Sort by controversial. Okay, we're going in, boys. That's because almost all current authoritarians are left wing. 5-head take right there. Really big smart boy pants stuff. What planet are you on? Funny because the left has had control over most government institutions in the Western world the last 60 years or so. What? How many of the last like 20 presidents were Democrats? Like 3, 4? And that's just Democrats, not even the left. I don't know about that. Yeah, all right, so this is where, but see, that's the thing. The only Joe defense is sitting in the controversial section because it's been downvoted to oblivion. So I think Joe is kind of alienating a good amount of his audience. Democrats are the enemies of free speech. All dissent must be silenced according to them. Go on, downvote me for wrong think. Like, bro, getting downvoted is not wrong. Like, that mentality just kills me. Like, if you disagree with me, you are silencing me. Oh God. Take all that time and energy you use to get wound up about Trump and do something fun or positive. Go for a walk, read a book, volunteer. Yeah, sure, bro. Why not? Yeah, I think we milked this for all it's worth. I get the point. It does, yeah, it's... I guess this is Reddit, and it's probably not a total reflection of Joe's broader audience. I mean, how many people? 715K, so not even a million. His podcasts get millions of views. Well, I don't know about anymore, but they used to. It's probably combined with clips in the millions. So this is probably a more lefty sample of his audience than you would find in the wild, but... Oh, shit. Here we go. A review of the paper on myocarditis that Joe Rogan discussed with Sanjay Gupta. The claim from the study author is that they replicate the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practice, ACIP, analysis of CVAM, COVID vaccine-associated myocarditis. Event reports from the vax. Oh, my God, dude. Yeah, it was from VAERS. It wasn't even a study. It was sampling from VAERS. Which literally I could go on VAERS right now and say that the vaccine like made my balls explode. Dumpster diving in VAERS has been well covered by science-based medicine for 13 years. It's a classic anti-vaccine trope where reports from VAERS are dredged up to scare people. Dude, Jesus Christ.
You gotta get Nicki Minaj on the walk, yo.
Oh my God, bro. I obviously didn't read enough. I just looked up, like, the first thing I saw on Google said that this study was very questionable. I thought it was just like a small sample size or something. Well, whatever the truth is, that study was complete bullshit. I didn't realize quite how bullshit it was. I mean, it's literally not even a study. They didn't do any study. They just read through the VAERS, which again is completely unreliable. But it's good that it exists. I mean, the CDC looks at VAERS and they investigate, and that's how it should be. So the fact that I like that anybody can report. No, and that's where Sanjay Gupta, look, I understand that he couldn't necessarily look into the study on the fly live, but you as a man of science should have been able to push back and say like, well, you know, that's one study, Joe, and I'm sure the CDC is aware of that one study, and if it's something serious, they will make a report on it. If it's not, because sometimes studies are not always reliable, or sometimes they have an agenda, as I'm sure you know, Joe. But that seems it's not even about prepared. Like, if I'm not a doctor, bro, and I can come up with that answer, like, I hold him to a slightly higher standard than a fucking dumbass like me. Like, I don't understand that. Like, it's so easy. And I mean, my buddy Josh, who like is not a doctor, you know, he came up with an easy answer. Like, you know, he had sent me an article that morning, and I told Keys this earlier. I don't know if you were there, but that there was some study that came out that said like marijuana smokers are more likely to get COVID or something. And it's like, there's all sorts of just individual studies that people can pull from for their agenda. And it's about trusting the broader scientific institutions to catch that sort of thing. I know. That's we had covered that pretty thoroughly earlier. I don't think you were here yet, but it's ridiculous, bro. I mean, I don't know how you can. It's a kind of arrogance almost. It really is, to think you can just go on his show and not do what you're there to do, and like actually end up doing harm to the discourse by being so weak. Oh, he would. No, Joe was letting him. I saw some people saying that. I don't think that's true. He just didn't make the use of the time he had to speak. He was stuttering half the time, you know. But whoa, we gotta look. You know, you look at the you know. I think he only started to interrupt once he knew. I mean, he was trying to carry the show. The dude was a blubbering mess. Like, he couldn't, like, he couldn't get a thought out. So yeah, Joe kept pushing because he felt that he had the advantage. But that's on Sanjay again as like a fucking medical expert to have some pretty basic pushback on some pretty terrible ideas. I just don't get that. George W. That's what I'm saying, bro. I said that earlier. Like, Joe is usually the pushover. Joe is usually the one who's just trying to agree with the other person in the room. You know, it's very rarely, and it's usually only surrounding like the only times I can think of is like Steven Crowder being anti-weed. He pushed back really hard on that, and he tried to push Ben Shapiro really hard on like gay marriage and shit. And those are the only two times I can think that Joe has ever like put any significant pushback on a guest. And now this time. But again, it felt different this time almost because it was just like it wasn't even almost that he was pushing, it's that he just immediately felt the advantage he had. The fact that Sanjay was going to be absolutely complete pushover. And more importantly, that Sanjay wasn't going to say anything powerfully enough or say anything confidently enough for him to want to agree with it. Okay, Dave Rubin on construction, right? Even that, though, he was kind of nice to Dave Rubin about that. He was kind of he pushed back on him, but it wasn't as hard as he probably could have for such a stupid fucking statement. Yeah, there's probably been a few others, I'm sure. Oh, Candace Owens. He pushed back pretty hard on Candace Owens when he had her on, which I respected. Again, maybe not as hard as he should have, but he at least tried. On the global warming stuff, he was pretty good. He was like, You're being crazy. Yeah, bro. Sad to see, man. Downfall of an icon. And again, his numbers are down too. He's not the immortal Oprah-like figure anymore. Not even the #1 podcast on Spotify. It's a shame. Who is the #1? It's like Mr. Beast and some like streamer or something. I'm gonna check it out. Spotify top podcast. Oh, he's back to #1. All right, he's reclaimed. This is probably after the Sanjay shit. That probably boosted him up. Oh no, it's not Mr. Beast. I thought it was Mr. I don't know why I thought it was Mr. Beast. It's SapNap and Carl J. I think I've heard of Carl Jacobs before. I have no idea who SapNap is. It's fucking. Are they even Zoomers still, or is it like? Are they a new generation? No, it's still Zoomers. I think there might be a new generation now, but they're like 2 years old. I gotta just hop in. Oh, Valkyrie.
Hey, what is
dude?
up, guys?
This okay,
What's
Mr.
up, guys?
Beast.
What's up,
Wants-
guys? Okay.
It was starting. There was like
Okay, I'm done with that. Joe trying to get a live interview. I don't think he would do it. He's probably been invited. I don't think he has any interest in doing that. It's like you said, he's got, the fuck does he need to do that for? He gets more views than CNN, for fact. Exactly. I think Don Lemon needs to go on Joe Rogan. I want to see his ass get embarrassed too. Dude, Don Lemon talks so much shit, bro. And never like puts up. He's all talk, bro. I've never seen that man actually like have to face any kind of pushback.
Speaking of CNN, all the terrible things that happen over there on that network.
That's gonna make me mad.
Over there on that network, you'll recall
Hassan on Joe Rogan, is that what you're saying? No, not a chance, bro. Not a fucking chance in this lifetime or any other would he ever have Hassan on. Or Vosh. Either one. Both would just literally make him like curl up in a ball and cry.
Paul, we covered the great conversation.
Joe is not ready for that kind of smoke, dude.
Between podcaster Joe Rogan and Dr. Sanjay Gupta. They had a very spirited discussion.
Hassan's gonna get to a point if he keeps on the trajectory he's on. Like if you look at his numbers and shit, like he's gonna get to a point where Joe can't ignore him, and he's already kind of at that point. We're already almost at that breaking point. And I think it's gonna be on someone like Crystal or Kyle to like bring his name up in an interview and have kind of force Joe to make a comment about it, and then we could see where it would go from there. But yeah, no, that's I can't imagine that ever. I don't know what would happen. First of all, Hassan has kind of burned that bridge. Hassan is definitely in us. But you know, if Joe's not a fucking little sensitive pussy, like yeah, it's all jokes. You know, what are you trying to cancel him, dude? You trying to censor his speech? Like, well, you can't handle a little friendly ribbing from a fan. Like Hassan also very openly says he's a fan of Joe Rogan.
Around full vaccination, myocarditis, what comments about ivermectin and horse ivermectin, quote, horse dewormer, and basically forced him to retract his extraordinarily difficult position. I took away from the interview with Rogan that he is a genuinely good person. At least that's what came across from me. I think he was coming honestly. He clearly listens to Rogan. He wanted to communicate something, and I thought he was a straight shooter as they come, kind of within that industry. I met him before, and he's an extraordinarily nice person. But on CNN, it just goes to show that if you want to protect your job to survive in this industry, you have to just like basically conform and spit out the party line. I'm really not exaggerating here. Just for those who are listening, I actually encourage you to watch this clip just so that you can see how much they make him squirm. Watch Don Lemon basically whip Sanjay Gupta into compliance, saying that they didn't do anything wrong. Let's take a listen.
So very important. I know it's in large part a tongue-in-cheek interview, because it's Joe Rogan and there's you're jockeying back and forth. But he did say something about ivermectin that I think wasn't actually correct about CNN and lying, okay? Ivermectin is a drug that is commonly used as a horse dewormer. So it is not a lie to say that the drug is used as a horse dewormer.
True.
I think that's important, and it is not approved for COVID. Correct?
That's right. That's correct. It is not approved for COVID, and you're right. I mean, the FDA even put out a statement saying, basically reminding people, it was a strange sort of message from the FDA, but they said, you're not a horse, you're not a cow, stop taking this stuff, is essentially what they said, referring to ivermectin. Now, I think what Joe's point
that
is...
It has been approved for humans, but not necessarily for COVID, right? Yeah.
That's correct. It's been used for a parasitic disease, for something it's called river blindness, and it's been...
Well, Toby, you were there with me when we watched the video, the original video. You saw that they did eventually say, like, well, he obviously took the human version, So even if, okay, I can almost see what you're saying, but, yeah, exactly. Yeah, probably for legal reasons on some level, but they did say it, and I don't think Joe even knows that, to be honest. But thanks for stopping by, bro. Have a good evening. Hit me up if you're trying to hop on Xbox. Still got to get you on the split, Gary.
Very effective for that. But, just because it works for one thing doesn't mean it works for something else. And, there's still a few ongoing clinical trials around ivermectin. But for the most part, if you look at the data, there's no evidence that it really works here. When Joe got sick, he took ivermectin. He also took monoclonal antibodies, which is, an infusion of these antibodies. So he took both those things. It's very likely it was the monoclonal antibodies that made him feel better so quickly.
Sanjay, always a pleasure. I hope this was an easier experience than Joe Rogan. You held your own, though. It's very good.
3 hours. I mean, I don't think I've ever spoken to another human for 3 hours.
Oh my God, he just openly admits it. That's literally what I said, bro. These fucking libtards, bro. They live in a fucking bubble. They don't go outside their bubble. I don't think I've ever talked to somebody for 3 hours. Like, oh my God, dude. They self-report. so fucking hard. I can't believe it.
Then Joe Rogan, you held your own though. It's very good.
3 hours. I mean, I don't think I've ever spoken to another human for 3 hours before just like that. It was really something.
Sanjay,
Oh
thank
my
you.
God,
Best
dude.
of luck with the book as
You got
well. World War C.
Thank you.
That's a pretty remarkable interview there, Crystal. He's like, "Oh, we didn't do anything wrong." I mean, and it's funny. I've seen these memes going around where it's like Joe Rogan drinks water, and they're like, and CNN is like, Joe Rogan consumes liquid, sometimes used as an engine, carburetor, engine coolant.
Bro, you go and drink a bottle of engine coolant and tell me if it's like water. You get back to me. Let me know.
They're like that. Look,
Fucking moron.
Rogan, all that other stuff aside, can't you just admit that you screwed it up?
No.
Just say it. Just be like, listen,
No.
Sanjay
You just say
made
it.
a good point. They
I ate horse paste. Say it. Fucking say it.
also point out the
Come
evidence
on,
or
dude.
whatever around ivermectin. That's fine, but they still force him to come on the air for his struggle session to be like, no, we didn't do anything wrong. We didn't do it, and he's just sitting there. He's like stone faced. It's repulsive. To me
There's
at
a
this
couple
moment.
things that are funny about it. First of all, I like the way that Lemon frames the beginning.
I shouldn't say it. I'm going to say something I don't. I probably shouldn't say.
I said tongue in cheek.
As a way to diminish it, like, oh, we get, as a way to like give him a pass for going on with the, with the terrible Joe Rogan. It was tongue in cheek. It wasn't a serious thing.
Yes.
When in reality, the conversations
Joel.
they had over the course of 3 hours, going back and forth,
Joel.
and citing evidence, and
Joel.
talking to each other about the risk
Joel
factors,
Rogan.
and digging into the statistics, was a million times more
Joel
serious
Biden.
than what they do on CNN all day long, and certainly what they did on CNN right there. There's another moment there that I think is very revealing, though, where
At the end?
GUPTA starts to say, I think the point that Joe was trying to
Okay,
make,
no.
and then Lemon jumps in and cuts him off, because it seems like GUPTA is about to say, like, he was trying to make the point, like, I didn't take horse dewormer. I took
You literally did, though.
the human version, and that
It's no different version. It's ivermectin.
is extraordinarily common, and no, there
It's
isn't a
actually
lot of
extraordinarily rare because not many people are getting river blindness parasites these days.
evidence that it's effective for coronavirus, but there is evidence that it's effective for other things like river blindness, as Gupta points out here. And he references the evidence, which is
River blindness, COVID-19, same. They're both things.
important. But yeah, I mean,
It's all
the
stuff.
obvious takeaway from that interview should have been, you know what, guys, we got this wrong. Look, there are some people who, because there's been a run on ivermectin, have been taking the livestock version. They
Oh, so you're saying that this big fucking lie that ivermectin has anything to do with COVID-19 is having legitimate harm on people. But that's, oh yeah, it's just like people doing stuff, right? Yeah, it's not anything to do with the fact that morons like Joe Rogan, who are, taking the safe dosage of it because they're millionaires and they have probably close to a billionaire and they have access to it. Unlike the people who are rushing to their local veterinary store.
shouldn't do that.
It's always a matter of like priorities, man. That's what it comes down to. Even if you think you have like a legitimate argument on your side, it's like, where are your priorities at? Like, what do you actually care about? Like harm reduction? Do you care about improving conditions for people, or do you just want to fucking complain about shit?
not safe. But Rogan is not one of those people.
Oh, Joe had his feelings hurt. Oh, they said he took a horsey medicine. Oh, but I didn't take horsey medicine. How could you say this? How could you? Meanwhile, people, because they watch Joe Rogan and trust him and think he's a reliable voice, are chugging strawberry flavored horse dewormer and shitting their fucking intestinal tracts out. And people are like, oh yeah, but that's just, people do crazy things.
People. And to act like ivermectin,
But
that
Joe's
across the board,
feelings,
the only thing it's used for is horse deworming.
The
is
poor
just a lie.
multimillionaire
It's
got
just
his
not true.
fee-fees hurt.
And the real point that Joe
Christ,
made,
dude.
I thought very effectively.
Okay,
with
how
Sanjay,
is it
which of
that
course
this
they're not
is
gonna
not
get
considered
at all,
a great crisis
is
in
that
America?
When you lie
How
about
is it?
something basic like that,
How is
what does it do to people's trust of what you're saying on anything?
Yes.
And that's the real issue here. It's not about Rogan or
Yes, when you lie and say that he didn't take horse dewormer when he did, I question you, Crystal. I question what the fuck your agenda is.
what he took or his ego or anything. It's about you lied on something super basic, and even now,
That's how I feel. You lied about something very basic.
when you're caught red-handed,
oh my god.
you still can't admit it. You still can't say, you know,
I'm fucking over it. I need to move on to something else. It's the molding has to stop somewhere. I never even got through Gutfeld. Shut the fuck up, Guff. I don't. You had a good rhyme. Let's let you go out on top. Ooh. I know exactly what I want to go into next.